A couple of years ago, we started, realizing that everyone who was quoting stats about pornography use and people's struggles and the percentages of those were all using research that was 7 or 8 years old, or I guess at the time 5 years old. And a lot of it had come out in a study that had been commissioned by Josh McDowell Ministries. And in conjunction with Covenant Eyes, they had worked with the Barna Group to put out a report called The Porn Phenomenon. And it's got some incredible stats. It's where, if you've ever heard Pure Desire talk about that only 7% of churches have a plan or a specific ministry to help people who are struggling with pornography, it comes out of that study. Well, anyway, in this field we work in, we hear a lot of people speaking and talking, and they would reference stats. And in my mind, I knew, well, that came from the 2016 report, or that's from a 2012 Covenant Eyes stat pack. That's from 2011. And so here we are post-COVID. We're in really a new era where today's young adults all grew up with cell phones, smartphones, tablets in their hands as toddlers, as part of their babysitter growing up experience, that they've been accessing the internet from before they probably knew even what it was. And we didn't have any new data on what is this generation experiencing, what are adults going through. And so we started a conversation with the Barna Group to say, we'd like to put out some new data. We'd like to do new research, some of which would build on that 2016 report, but also go well beyond it into some new areas that are of particular interest to Pure Desire, like data more from women and from relationships and the impact it has on marriages. And so the further we got into it, the more excited we got, because when we contacted Barna and started talking with them, they said, this is the #1 survey that we get questions about, and the most common request we get to do a new survey. And so we started to feel like God was at work. We took the idea to our donors and got tremendous support. It was a big part of last year's fundraising dinner and year-end push, and we were able to raise all of the funds to do this report. And so coming out in September here in 2024 will be brand new data and research on pornography use, the church, rate of use by Christians, men, women. There's just all kinds of information coming out that we think is going to give us a fresh perspective on what's happening in our world, and specifically what's happening in the church and among Christians, because that's one of the beautiful things about these kind of reports is that as they ask questions, in the demographic questions they ask up front, they can separate out, what did men say on this? What did women say? What did Christian men say? We could get granular all the way down to what did Christian young men in their early 20s say on this question. And as you look at, some of those age comparisons of millennials versus boomers versus Gen Z, there's some pretty fascinating information in there. And so I think on the whole, the goal here is to really help put a spotlight back on the struggle that can be so hidden and secretive, and help equip pastors and leaders and Christians to have this conversation that by and large we are still not having. And so that's the announcement, is that there is a brand new study coming out from Barna, commissioned by Pure Desire, to give us fresh and relevant information on what is happening in this whole area. And we can't wait to see the impact that it will have on really reinvigorating this conversation, and more importantly, reinvigorating the conversation around how do we help people who are struggling.
Yeah, and we'll talk about this a couple times, but wanted to hit it up front that we actually have a launch event for this study being released, and we have this Barna launch event, and it's on September 19th. You can go to puredesire.org/Barna-launch, and you'll have more details at the end of the episode, but wanted to make sure that people know this is going to be a time where we unpack with, we'll talk about it a little bit later, who all is going to be there, but unpack the study. What do we do in our churches? And we're hoping that pastors, church leaders, motivated volunteers would come to this event. So puredesire.org/Barna-launch.